It's with great pleasure that I welcome you all here tonight. My name is Holly Morehouse, and I'm the Executive Director of Vermont After School. Way to go, Vermont After School. As a statewide nonprofit, Vermont After School is dedicated to building the field of after school and youth work throughout Vermont. And our commitment really is to ensuring that every Vermont child and youth has access every opportunity to out-of-school time, every day to out-of-school time activities and programs that will keep them healthy and safe, that will spark their curiosity, that will help them develop relationships with peers, learn from adult role models, and really build a sense of self. We're here tonight to learn from one of Finland's leading experts on youth engagement, youth policy, and youth work. I'm thrilled to have so many of you here to listen together and learn together and hope that we can begin to think differently, not just about how we serve and support our young people in Vermont, but really fundamentally even just how we think about youth in Vermont and what that means and what is it about that age and that time in a young person's life. In helping us sponsor and organize this event, I'd like to thank the College of Education and Social Services here at the University of Vermont for providing this space, this wonderful space here. Thank you to the college. If you didn't know, the college has a number of growing relationships with several different universities in Finland, and it's really exciting to see how those new partnerships and collaborations are going to develop and grow in the years ahead. For the reception tonight that we all just enjoyed in the Alumni House portion of the day, and also for a lot of planning around all the details of the events, I'd like to thank the Alchemist Foundation and Liz Schagel, yes, who is somewhere in the room. The Alchemist Foundation has been such a strong partner in this work. I'm thinking creatively about how to expand opportunities, to expand economic and educational opportunities for young people in Vermont. And I so appreciate their commitment to making sure that every young person knows that they have a positive future here in Vermont and can explore many different pathways to achieve their dreams. I'd also like to thank the Vermont Community Foundation for their support, not only for this particular event and Lasse's trip and his week here in Vermont, but also for their leadership in our state. If you're not familiar with the Community Foundation, their mission is to inspire giving and bring people and resources together to make a difference in Vermont. In late 2017, the Community Foundation committed to aligning its philanthropic resources to closing the opportunity gap, which they define as the divide that leaves many Vermonters struggling to build bright and secure futures, no matter how hard they work. Vermont After School is proud to have been selected this last year as a cornerstone partner with the Vermont Community Foundation, which is a 3-year grant of $180,000. And our role in this is to focus on youth and young adults and work with the Community Foundation around closing that opportunity gap. I would also like to mention the Community Foundation is live streaming the event tonight and will be posting the recording on their website afterwards. I absolutely have to recognize the board and staff of Vermont After School. Do not think anywhere you could ever find a more dedicated, passionate, committed, and professional group of people than I get to work with on my team and with our board. I'd also like to thank the Charles Stewart Mott Foundation, who has been a funder for Vermont After School since the very first day. They invest not only in quality after-school programming, but also systems building all across the nation. Finally, I need to call out the 60-plus individuals and organizations that have partnered with us on the Vermont 9 to 26 Coalition. There they are. This is a new coalition. We've been working together for just a little over a year, implementing many of the ideas that you'll hear about tonight from Dr. Siurala that come over from Finland, as well as trying to explore different avenues forward. The coalition is anyone, a broad sector, lots of different approaches, who cares about young people in Vermont, ages 9 to 26. And that's how we're defining youth, and that's how we're moving forward with our work. Our idea is that through better collaboration, we can serve young people better. We can find creative and innovative ways forward to make our state stronger. And we also believe that young people themselves make a better Vermont. Just by being young, being in our communities, we are a stronger state. And that we can work together with young people to create plenty of opportunities for them, not only to be young, but also to grow into healthy and happy Vermonters. before I introduce Dr. Siurala, I want to take a moment to set the stage a little bit for why we wanted to do this talk, and to also present a challenge that I think, on behalf of the 9 to 26 Coalition, that as we listen to the talk tonight and think about the ideas, that we rethink and reconsider our own understanding and idea of what our children and youth are doing in the third space. And when I talk about the third space, here's what I mean. If you think of the first space for learning and growth and development as being the home and the family, right? So that's where children enter the world. That's where they first start to learn and grow. And the second space being that formal education system and the schools, right? A very important place for learning and growth and development. What we're defining as the third space is everything else. All that time and all those potential activities outside of school, outside of home, where children and youth get so much of what they need. So whether they are learning to swim or kayak or climb a mountain, or working on perseverance and grit on a basketball team or a robotics team, or learning to express themselves creatively through art or music or dance or writing, whatever their media is, those are really critical, important skills. And they're really fundamental human skills. And it's in that space with each other in groups where they can learn those skills. It's with adult role models. It's in that non-formal learning situation that those things can be elevated and brought out and practiced. And that's what we believe is so strong in this equation of those three spaces being equally strong, and how do we elevate them. The third space is also no small amount of time. A student in Vermont spends on average 1,000 hours per year in the classroom, but another 5,000 hours outside the classroom in their community and with their friends. So it's a big chunk of time. We are also seeing that what they're exposed to, and this is from the research, and what activities they have access to can either set them up for success and to get ahead and to have new interests and hobbies, or it can put them at risk. The real kicker, though, for me and for those of us that are looking at this issue, is that more and more what activities and programs children and youth have access to in this third space is tied to family resources and income and where they live. And we're seeing this widening gap of those who can participate and take advantage of all these opportunities and those who cannot. And it is a gap that in Vermont is not just an educational issue. It's not just an economic issue. It's a health issue. It's a social justice issue. It's an equity issue. We have to do more. We have to do better, and we have to do differently. So that's where Finland comes in. What can we look at? What can we do differently? I had the opportunity last spring to travel with a colleague for several weeks in Finland. I think it's in large part to the Con Hogan Award from the Vermont Community Foundation. And we got to see it's that magic where you can pick yourself up from what you know and how you always are doing things and how you relate to everybody and all the systems around you, and plop yourself down in a completely different culture where all the systems are all different, and it makes your brain sort of go like, whoa, we don't have to do it this way. I don't have to go through these same paths to make things happen. We can really stretch and look differently. And it was such a wonderful gift. We hear you can't be anywhere near education without hearing about Finland, right? We hear a lot about their education system. Many people have gone over, they've tried to study, what are they doing in the classrooms? But the question that we're looking at is, what are they doing outside the classroom? So some of the highest test scores in the world, but also one of the shortest school days, that makes their third space even larger than what we're talking about. So what is happening in that space that supports students, youth, and children that may also be contributing to their success? That's what we're gonna hear about. So Dr. Lasse Siurala is an expert in youth policy, youth work, and youth engagement. He is currently working as a lecturer at the Tallinn University in Estonia, as well as a special advisor to the Humak University of Applied Sciences in Helsinki. He is retired, believe it or not, doing all those things. He has spent many years as the director of youth services for the city of Helsinki, which has 300 to 400 youth workers and 60 youth centers across the city. And he was also the director of youth and sports for the Council of Europe. He is a well-recognized youth researcher, and as you will see when he talks, he is a very passionate advocate for youth across the world. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Lasse Siurala.
Thank Well, I just said, Molly, that extremely well spoken. She is indeed very good. For me, it's absolutely a great honor speaking in the same university that John Dewey went. And I mean, he's one of the great educationalists, and he's a great educationalist also for all of us who are working with the young people. So thank you, organizers, for giving me this opportunity. Another thing which I experienced just during the last hour when I joined the reception was that I was absolutely amazed how well networked you are. I think the Vermont is one of the most or best networked community I have seen. Everybody seemed to know each other. Even if they came from absolutely different disciplines and departments and everything. Just amazing. Yes, I would like to, yes, this could be Vermont. It's the weather is exactly the same as you have, but it's the capital of capital of Finland, Helsinki. Just starting by saying a few words about Finland and then going on to youth work and some other stuff. Some years ago, Newsweek decided that Finland is best in the world and showed some happy people in the cover. I don't know, but there in the happiness thing there is a truth, because there is another very recent study. It's a UN report on the happiness of people in the world, and this happiness index kind of looked at 6 indicators. That's income, healthy life expectancy, social support, freedom, trust, and generosity. And then countries were ranked, and it seems that we are, well, the happiest country in the world. That's nice to see. But USA is not far in the list. There were 156 countries, so being 18th out of 156 isn't too bad. In this happiness report, one of the indexes was trust. And I think Finland is known for the fact that people in general, they trust each other and the institutions. There is another index, just going through these stupid indexes, which really are plenty, but I show only those indexes where Finland is very good. So this is the famous Transparency International Index, which looks at the corruption in countries, and it's based on independent experts giving their idea, and also results of reputed polls carried out in countries. And according to this analysis, Finland is now the 3rd least corrupted country in the world. We used to be more higher up, but now we are 3rd. But that's not bad either. So yes, USA was number 16 out of 180. So not bad either. I'm not getting into politics here. There is an interesting new index which was just launched a month ago by the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. And this is called Good Country Index. And it doesn't look at how well a country is treating its citizens within its borders, but how much does a country contribute goodness to other countries, to the world. So it's a kind of a good global citizen index. And well, I can read you. Some of you might not read this because it's quite small text, but the people doing this index say that the Good Country Index was designed to start a global debate about what countries are really for. Do they exist purely to serve the interests of their own politicians, businesses, and citizens, or are they actively working for all humanity and the whole planet? The debate is a critical one because if the first answer is the correct one, we are all in deep trouble. Okay, so the index looked at the areas like science, technology, culture, peace, world order, climate, prosperity, equality, health, well-being, a lot of different fields, and looked at how much each country contributed the other countries in these fields. And it was kind of related to the size of the country, to the GDP of each country. So it was related to the size of the country. And well, this is also a nice index to show you because Finland landed as the as the best of the good countries. Okay, so well, a few years, maybe a few tens of years ago, I should have shown some statistics from sports where Finland has been world champions, but we have become worse in the sports. We have been going down, so I don't have those statistics. But do you know what countries do if they are not good at something like in sports for these purposes? They create a new sports which nobody else does than the ones, and I've got you one. Finland is a world champion in wife carrying. It's a track which is about 300 yards, and you have to carry your wife. There are water obstacles, other obstacles, but you had to be quick to the end. And Finland is the world champion in this one. So it's also an idea for you if you want to see how the happy, strange people of Finland live. Please join the next wife carrying championships. They will be in July in Sonkajärvi, Finland. It will be a lot of fun. To be more serious and getting back to the serious statistics, it's just this is my final one, is the Pisa studies, which measures the educational achievement of 15-year-olds on math and reading and stuff like that. And and here Finland used to be on top of these rankings, but also here we have dropped a few. I think we are number 8. Yes, number 8. And it doesn't mean that we have become worse. It means that there are a lot of countries which really have invested in this competition, and they have really have been doing a good job, and they are landing quite high up there. Oh, I forgot to say that in the Good Country Index, USA was 14th out of 148. Yes, and this one, United States, USA is 31. But I'm not going to go into more detail this one because I'm not an educationalist, and secondly, there are excellent country reports on these results. For example, there is a very thick and very good report on USA based on the Pisa reports and recommendations on how you should improve your educational system. But that's not my cup of tea, so to say. But one thing which I like to now go over and emphasize, which actually Holly already made a very good introduction, is that there are many learning contexts for young people. They learn in the families, they learn at the school, but they also learn at the third space. And I think Finland is one country which has thought that this is important and has invested in young people's activities in the third sector, third space. For example, just start with some examples, is that our current government just 2017, 1.5 years ago, decided that it said that it's the government's priority program that one hobby for every child in Finland. And it's an idea that leisure time activity is so important for the growth of young people that they must have at least one hobby. And they also thought that every child has to have at least 1 hour per day some physical activity. So these are just a few examples how the Finnish government and Finland wants to invest in the third space. The other example of investment in third space is investment in youth work. I know you don't have the word youth work. You talk about youth development, but it's basically the same thing. Or work in the third space or after school. I've visited during these 2 days very many after-school activities and youth development programs, which appeared to me as great pieces of youth work. I would call them youth work. But in Finland there is a particularly strong investment in youth work, and but there is, I had to say this, there is also a history behind why we have that. And the history is that in the Second World War, Russia attacked Finland and the Baltic countries. The Baltic countries went to Russia, but Finland kept its independence. Well, the Finnish used to tell that that is because we beat the Russians. Well, maybe it's more complicated than that. But anyway, we kept our independence, and people thought that that was because the Finnish people had a strong national identity. And they further thought that strong national identity was a result of our roots in agricultural way of life, in the Finnish nature, and kind of a simple life, because Finland was very slowly industrialized country in that time. And well, after Second World War, things changed. Industrialization took quick steps forward. People moved into cities, and the kind of a growing context of young people very dramatically changed. And what people saw there were more and more American movies, there were tobacco, alcohol, restaurants, rock and roll, gangs, and people were actually very worried that what happens to our national identity now that we are under so strong influence of American culture. So then people kind of decided that okay, we must establish places where we can kind of observe and look and maybe control our young people, and maybe have some educational specialists looking after them. So they invented youth centers. So in Finland, we started to build a lot of youth centers at the time. The first youth services were established and the centers built. And they actually boomed after the Second World War. For example, in 50s there were 3 youth centers at the city of Helsinki. By 1980s there were more than 100 youth centers. Now we have only 60 youth centers. And the point is that this investment continued, and people kind of started to think and understand that after all, forgetting about the national identity thing and the Russians, it still seemed to be something that our children need and is very useful for our kids. So youth work institutionalized in Finland on later years. And currently all municipalities, cities, towns, they have youth service, municipal youth service, which is funded by taxpayers' money, and they have youth centers and all other possible facilities. So this is of course, there is this specific historical reason that contributed also to the development and fact that we invest in the third sector. A few pictures. This is a picture of the first open youth center at the city of Helsinki. Yes. After that, the youth centers diversified and became more modern, and today they serve as a meeting place for any young people. They meet each other, they meet the youth worker, they sort out their issues and problems if they have any, and there is a number of different kind of activities and clubs and hobbies and everything that you can do. We visited a few places like King Street Center, Boys and Girls, which also had a good gym. Some have also gyms. And apparently people have been on graffiti painting courses too. So that's things. Well, this looks like King Street Center, no? No, it's not King Street Center. It's one of our oldest and most popular youth center. The thing is that it used to be old city morgue. Now it's a center for music and having good time. And during the weekends, youth centers are open until 10, 11 on Fridays and Saturdays. And if there is music, there is action. Furthermore, we have something we call a virtual youth center. And this we already have had for 10 years. It's idea that it's young people can come to this virtual youth center and take on this avatar figure on them, trying to personalize himself, and they communicate with these speech bubbles. And in the youth center, they can meet each other, discuss. They can meet youth workers. They are real youth workers, 2 or 3 at the same time in the centers. They organize thematic discussions in these evenings, and parties, music, many kind of things. And they are quite popular. Actually, they are the only youth centers that have queues outside them. And by the way, when we were talking there about the kind of geography of Vermont, this might be one solution, because if you have a virtual youth center, anybody can have an access to it, wherever one is living. So it's one option for this. Oh, this is a map of city of Helsinki and all those 60 youth centers around. Well, this visually gives you the idea is that each neighborhood has to have its own youth center. As I was the director of the city of Helsinki, we had at some time had to cut some money from the budget, and I tried to close one of the youth centers, but didn't work out because the parents made a big noise out of it. They started to call the city directors and the city council and wrote newspapers, made programs and organized demonstrations and all that, and it couldn't be done. But the positive thing was that people understand a youth center as a basic service, as a necessity that has to be there for their kids. So that was the kind of a positive side of it. This is just kind of an excerpt from the web pages of the youth centers, giving a short idea of what happens in the youth centers. There are, at this page, it's unfortunately Finnish. I know there are some people here who speak Finnish, so they can read this. But there are some activities that are related to finding summer jobs, because we also disseminate summer jobs for young people. There are some pages related to social media activities. In some there are programs on contraceptives and prevention in that sense, and we have a domestic animal farm that's open already, and there are courses on dancing, different kind of courses, parties, and so on. Well, this is important because this is the web page of our youth council. So we have a youth council which is pretty active and quite well integrated in the city administration. So they make a lot of initiatives and are active. In the center picture down, there is information event where the chair of the youth council tells the rest of the youth council that we got a response from the social sector that our initiative to have more free contraceptives for young people in Helsinki is on their table, and they are trying to do something to it. And the other picture in the right corner shows some happy faces of youth councillors, and that is because they have just received information that the youth council has been admitted to participate in all city committee meetings, and that the youth council can participate in the meetings of the city council board, which is the kind of the highest decision-making body in a city, and they can speak in that meeting. So they not only can attend it, but they also can open their mouth and say what they think of things, which is quite extraordinary thing. So in that sense, young people are quite well integrated in the decision-making processes in Helsinki. You have a youth council, so I know you guys here in USA are not as government and administration friendly as we are in Finland. Was it Ronald Reagan who said that the government does not have a problem, it is the problem? And I understand that what applies in Helsinki doesn't necessarily apply here, but perhaps there would be opportunities to see what kind of partnership agreements could be made between the administration and the government and the youth council. Our experience is that young people are very innovative, and it is useful for the councillors and decision makers and politicians to know what the young people think. And they can also mobilize a lot of young people to implement certain things. And our kind of a experience is that bringing those two elements closer to each other is a win-win situation. So good luck, Javi. Shortly, in Finland, youth work has three elements. One is the local government youth work I told you about, like the Helsinki one. Then we have something called youth organizations. Youth organizations are those organizations which are led by young people. So they are not organizations who are led by adults but provide services for young people. They are organizations which are run by young people themselves, and they have a special status in Europe. And we have for umbrella organization for national youth organizations, which the number is quite big, and they together, this umbrella organization is a very powerful lobby organization in Finland. If they want to address a youth issue, they can make very big noise, they can call directly the ministers, and they can sure have an effect on youth issues. So, and on the European level, in European Union, and also in the Council of Europe, the youth organizations are key decision makers around the table with the governments. So they really have made their way through. So the question is, how could you empower young people to establish youth organizations and take over the power? And Lutheran Youth Church is very active in youth work. Okay, where does the legitimacy come from in Europe and in Finland to do youth work? Basically and firstly, it's the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. That's the most important thing. Well, 196 countries have adopted this, well, except one. Yeah, we know which that is, I have also, and many people have been wondering why is that. I'm not going to get involved in this debate, but I make a reference to my colleagues from University of Minnesota, professors Joyce Walker and Dale Blyth, who have said that in large part, child, youth and family policy decisions are, in the USA, predominantly based on a custodial and not a rights philosophy. That's what they say. I don't know if this is right and whether this still holds, but that's what they say. When I was in Minnesota, I had the opportunity to discuss with one manager from the education department, and he also verified the message saying that we in the USA generally do not really think that young people have rights. Well, but this is a big country and people have very different opinions. Sometimes you are even divided on certain things. And and when I was in Minnesota and met people like you there, I made a little questionnaire study there, and asked the youth field people in Twin Cities that would they be in favor of USA ratifying the UN the Rights of Child Convention, and the result was that everybody would have been in favor of USA ratifying that. Very few people said that no. So it depends on who you ask. But you guys here in Vermont, you have rights for the children. I think this is absolutely great. And I think there are two important things why this is very significant. The first important thing is that I think this kind of declaration of youth rights in a state, you perhaps are the only or the very few states that have such a document. So that's one thing to be proud of. The second important thing is that this is drafted by the young people themselves. It's not drafted by adults for young people to protect them. It's written by young people themselves. So that makes it very unique. And I mean, it's a good working document for everybody working with young people, giving some idea of what kind of things young people find important. I'm proud of Holy4 and the coalition and all this thing to have achieved that. On a European level, we have two kind of a big organizations. One is Council of Europe, which is the country that includes 47 countries, headquarters in Strasbourg, and European Union, which is the more economic organization, which has 28 countries. Maybe in a few weeks, maybe one less, but we'll see. So the Council of Europe, for example, has made a lot of kind of recommendations and charters for the member countries concerning youth and youth work. For example, just a few years ago, it made a recommendations. There's a recommendation of the Committee of Ministers on youth work. Committee of Ministers is a body where the foreign ministers of each country gather and they agree. So this is agreed by 47 foreign ministers in Europe. So it's kind of at least morally very binding. And this recommendation, it explains what youth work is, what are its objectives, what are the expected outcomes, and how it should be funded and organized. So it's also a very useful document for those countries which don't have good youth work systems. So they can say that we had to do this and that to have youth work. And they can talk to the government, say that you signed and dedicated yourself to promote this, give us funds. So, and it gives kind of a background for what you do in youth work. Then it's the European Union. It has just published its new youth strategy for the coming 9 years. And you can see here, top left, the key objectives. It's encouraging youth participation and particularly new forms of agency. Promoting youth exchange around Europe. Supporting digital youth work is one priority, and then enhancing cross-sectoral cooperation, something you do in this room apparently every day. So that's new to us. And there will be a lot of funds for all these priorities. So all countries carefully read these objectives and try to apply for funds and do something together with other European countries. Okay, so, and on the national level, talking about the legitimacy, on the national level, in some countries, maybe 1/4 of the European countries have youth laws. And for example, Finland has it, we have had already for 50 years, and we renew it every 7 years, and this is the latest law. And here I just picked up for your interest Section 8, which talks about youth participation. And if you look at it, it says young people must be given opportunities to take part in the handling of matters concerning local and regional youth work and youth policy. Youth policy means everything related to young people. Further, young people shall be heard in matters concerning them. And we have a case where one principal did major renovations in the school and didn't consult the students. And the students got mad and they sued the principal for violating the youth law. And the court found the principal guilty. And he has to start the process again. starting with discussing with young people. So it gives you good background when you want to do things together with young people. It's kind of a must. Okay, so now, those were examples of a kind of the legitimacy, and in Europe and in Finland there are very strong norms to guide us. So, what's the educational framework of youth work? First of all, of course, the local guy. I think he's the most important one. Learner-centered, practice-based learning leading to social change. The European counterpart would be Paul Natorp, who was to be the founder of social pedagogy. I talked with somebody. It was you. Yeah, yes, about this. Yes. So he's the founder of social pedagogy, which is today the kind of is the key figure in. I mean, it gives you the theoretical framework of how youth work is done. Holly talked about the third space. In Europe, we talk about non-formal learning. But the idea is the same, that there are learning contexts in the school, in the leisure time. And this is a kind of one definition of non-formal learning. It says that it's learner and practice-centered learning process which emphasizes internal motivation, the social context of learning, and usability of knowledge. Well, that's Dewey. And it aims at identity growth, social integration, and social change. So that's it. That would apply to third space, wouldn't it? Talking about European youth work, Finnish youth work, there is something that we find important, and it's the importance of trying to work cross-sectorally and linking different kind of actors. And we have not been very good at it. It's been a long priority, but maybe European public sectors are so strong and siloed that it seems to be very difficult to actually do that. So the governments have tried to push this idea forward by putting it in the law. So for example, in Finland, we have the government draws every 4 years something called Government Youth Policy Program, which is a kind of program which tries to coordinate the activities of the different ministries on youth affairs. And it's done every 4 years, and it's been reported back to the government. Then on the kind of a local level, the city level, there is, through the Youth Act, there is a statutory coordinating body for youth affairs, which should do the same thing in the cities. So the cities, they must set up this coordinating body in all cities, where this body consists of the key people in the city dealing with youth somehow, and they had to follow the youth situation and coordinate and propose new projects and so on. So that's another thing. And then on the very kind of a point of service, there is something that I wanted to show you, which is a kind of a collaborative service. It's called OneStop Guidance Center. And it's we were yesterday to see Spectrum activities, and I found that it had a bit similar idea. But this picture is taken from a city of Kotka, which is exactly the same size as Burlington. And there is one stop guidance center, which in Finnish is called Ohjaamo. try to remember that. Ohjaamo. Okay, Ohjaamo is a place which has to be in the center of town. This is in the center of town. It's in a mall. It's not a big facility, but it's a kind of a youth center looking like center where the young people would feel easy to step in. And the idea is that in this center there are people, well, these who have these kind of a blue colleges on them. There are, depending on the size of this service, there are from 7 to 45 people who come from the different departments dealing with youth issues. And they are there to be met any young people. And these people are networked between themselves. So if you ask this lady, for example, that I need a flat. So if she is not the person who knows about flats, she's taking the young people to that person who knows. Now, there are kind of 6-7 people who are there permanently all day, but then a lot of people are there only on certain hours to be met. So not everybody are always there. That would be too difficult arrangement, but they are there at some point. So you have direct access to those people through these points. And this is an example of the city of Helsinki has also such a service. It's got 45 people working in that place, and there are people from the employment authorities, youth work, housing, employment schemes, social and health sectors. There are companies, there are different kind of non-profit organizations, people from the education department and so on. So all those relevant people are there. So it's really a place where you basically get your answers quickly. This is very new, but the first evaluations that have been done have been very encouraging and positive, and particularly young people have said that it has been very helpful for them to get their answers quickly and from the same place. And that's basically a question of organizing thing. It's necessarily not hugely expensive. Now, finally, I'll just have a look at one research that I was also involved with, a European research with 5 countries, where we tried to have a look at what do young people themselves think about what is important in youth work. So what we did in these 5 countries was that we asked young people who have been in youth work for some time, we asked them, what do you think has been the most significant change that occurred for you as a result of coming here? And we asked them to write a story about that. Some people wrote a short story, some people wrote a longer story, and then we analyzed it using narrative analysis and tried to draft themes, and we came up with 6 themes, which were kind of 6 areas of things where young people thought that youth work had affected their life. I won't go this through, but there are something interesting. And the most interesting thing, I think, was that the most frequent answer was that they replied that they learned something important which affected their later life. So I think this proves scientifically that the third space is a learning context and a learning space. It's just that some of the kind of the learning effects do not come immediately, but might come later. But that was the one of the interesting things. Okay, finally, I've been talking to you now about structures and research and services and recommendations and whatever. But where the idea is, of course, that these try to help young people become active citizens. Let's now, I'd like to finish my presentation by looking at one very current phenomena of young people becoming active citizens and see what you think about it. Last November, young people in Australia went out of school by noon, so that was illegal. And they had posters on them. In Melbourne, they went to the Parliament House and said that the government haven't done enough for the climate change. Next thing that happened is that Prime Minister Scott Morrison got absolutely angry at the young people, said that, so what we want is more learning in schools and less activism in schools. So he was really, really angry. You can guess what happened next. The young people got even more mad about it, and the thing continued. More people came on the streets, and they had signs like this. And this is my favorite poster. It spread to all over Australia, and schools all went to strike for climate, and this is great. Activism is learning. There you go. I think Dewey would have been proud of this poster. And it's interesting how the young people explain why they did this. Here is 14-year-old Jean, who said that already we are living with the climate impacts, and the toll it is taking on us as young people is huge. Right now, we are literally fighting for our lives. What can you add there? Amazing. So the demonstrations continued, and they also, the young people also found that actually the government was also trying to open a coal mine. So they got really mad, and it went to the gates. So one important, interesting question is here: what did the public think of it? Was the public on the side of the government or on the side of the strike-going children? What happened in the public thinking? So, at that time there was a poll on Australia. A representative sample of Australians was polled and asked about this one. And the results say that a clear majority of voters agrees that school students have a right to demand the Morrison government act urgently to address dangerous climate change. So clearly, the majority of public opinion was on the side of the young people, not on the government. You can see that Morrison landed in some trouble. I'm waiting when his term is ending. Young people can be dangerous. They have power. One interesting thing was that where did the Australian young people pick this idea of going to strike for climate change? Where did they pick this idea? And they said that they were inspired by Greta Thunberg. Do you know who is Greta Thunberg? Ah, some of you know. Yes. Greta Thunberg is a 15-year-old Swedish girl who, on top of other things, has Asperger's syndrome. And he went out of school Friday noon with this poster saying that he's on school strike for climate. And he was sitting alone with this poster in front of the Parliament House every day since early November. And for some reason, this kind of inspired young people around the world to do the same. Interesting thing. I think social media had also something to do with it, but it was him. So it spread anyway. This is Finland. This is Helsinki. We also had in January a student demonstration on that, and just a few days ago, in early 7th September, it spread to Belgium and Germany too. This picture is from Belgium, where around 60,000 young people in schools striked all over the Belgian cities, and it's again interesting to see the story again. That well, first of all, what did the organizers say? Why did they do this? Anuna says, we are the next generation. We are allowed to decide. Of course. What can you say? Marie-Martin Schön, Minister of Education, said that this absence from school must be punished. Then suddenly he heard that, well, the public might not agree with you. You better be a little bit more careful. So he specified his words. Then she specified her words and said that if there are no teachers, participation in demonstration is not school and to be punished. Which then was followed that in next demonstration, the entire schools and the teachers were demonstrating. And there was a few teachers who immediately integrated the demonstrations in their curriculum on social sciences and other things. And they even brought the children from 200 kilometers to do the demonstration. And finally, we learned also that the Flemish Minister of Environment, Jacques Chevriers, suggested that there was an organized conspiracy behind young people's demonstrations. And well, under some pressure, he resigned 5th February. He didn't read news from Australia. So, and to kind of wrap it up, this is from the webpage of the Australian group who is behind this organization. Well, this is the conspiracy group. Well, this is kind of an organizing unit from Melbourne, and from their web pages. Youth for Climate Action is their page. Remember it. You can go there and follow what they are doing now. And what they say is interesting. They say that please don't align us with your political party. We are a non-partisan movement and always will be. We will continue to push all politicians and political parties to take the action necessary for a safe climate future. We will never align ourselves with any politician or party. So this kind of changes our thinking of youth participation. It actually changes also our thinking of the kind of a traditional youth center, which is based on kind of a representation logic. I think what we see is an emergence of new forms of youth agency. And I let this last sentence hang in the air for you. How should we relate to them? Thank you.
We have time for some questions. I've got a microphone here, and Katrina's going to bring it around. I have to stand on my toes. If anybody has any questions for Lasse.
I have a lot of questions about those youth centers, which seem so cool. Like, who is accessing the centers? Are there age limits of who can come and who can't come in? Are they alcohol free? Or are there all sorts of rules around them? Exactly how do these centers work?
Okay, thank you. They are open. They are free and they are open, so everybody can access. But you are right. We have certain age rules. So the idea is that around 1 o'clock in the afternoon, it's intended for after-school activities. So they are open for people who are at the age of the after-school activities. So those below 12 years, and they are kind of thrown out around 6 o'clock at the latest when the older young people come in. So there is a kind of age policy in that sense. They are absolutely alcohol free. We are very strict on that one. You can't. It's absolutely no. And smoking, you can't smoke even near the youth center. You have to go to the nearest forest or somewhere. You can't go just around the youth center and smoke. It ain't working out. You have to disappear somewhere. So we try to make it as difficult as possible. And rules, yes, there are rules, but they are rules which are done by the young people themselves, and they are on the wall. You can read what the rules are. But it's basically rules concerning tolerant and good behavior. We don't.
Everybody using these, or is it certain groups of people?
Are youth centers? All kind of young people from all social classes visit youth centers, but there is an overrepresentation of young people from the lower social classes and people who live in one-parent families and so on. So there is so, but we think it's also a way to reach those kind of young people. And it's absolutely forbidden to use what is swearing. You can't swear. If you are swearing, it's the youth workers are immediately attacking you. So they can swear outside and wherever they want, but not in a youth center. We are very strict on that.
How you doing? So I'm Bruce Wilson. I want to thank Vermont After School Program for hosting this and you for coming. And I'm Bruce Wilson, Executive Director of Service Rendering Incorporated. We are a youth service provider since around 1999. And normally through all the years, I sit on a lot of different boards from the central level to work with our governor and all kind of people, and work with our coalitions and all the wonderful partners we have through nonprofits and businesses and then community and, of course, youth. And I normally don't come to these type of events anymore. You know, I stopped coming to them. That's the agenda is focused on youth with a good topic, you know. And our coalition, I'm a part of the Burlington Coalition, and they sent me the information to come to this, and Mariah, so I came. And I looked over what you do with youth in Finland, and I said, wow, there's actually another organization or person who's doing the same thing that we do. We open up youth centers across the state in all the major malls, chill-out centers, living rooms, Loft 89 in Fairhaven. And we have a youth advisory board who makes the decisions on our programs, projects, and events. We work with our community partners and businesses and community, and we always bring you to our youth agenda items like Sonia here. She's on our youth board from high school. Now she's on our youth board in college, so our United College Club program. And for many, many years, you know, I've been saying to a lot of folks, you know, that it's very important to put youth on boards. And we created youth on boards for the city of Burlington. They advise the mayor to our youth advisory committee, and they sit on boards to like police commission, planning commission, school board, because they need to make a decision on what happens. Because, quite frankly, in 5 years, like saying, what you gonna be in 5 years? You and I'll probably be retired on some warm beach somewhere, you know what I mean? And then there's them, and then they got to come in and re-scoop everything, redo everything, when they should be a part of the process from the beginning. And so we have our youth advisory boards, and they make decisions on our programs, projects, and events. And when we have youth events or dances or open mics or educational events, we get over 300 to 800 youth to come, because we use a peer-to-peer model, which youth invite their own youth, their own peers. and so it's been so successful for us. And we do all kind of. We just had last year. We had a big event at Davis Center, whereas we did Know Your Rights, where we invited the Commissioner of Human Rights to come in and talk to the students around what their rights are, because quite frankly, a lot of them didn't know about housing or voting rights or a lot of things, and I learned a lot myself, And now the next one is about law enforcement, and the chiefs will be doing it there too. And so that's important, and as well as healthy outlets for youth, like having our youth centers have like all the things you have, like food tables, Xbox, and all the things they love to do. And I'm like, God, I've been doing this since 2001, and I see the measurements of what we have done, and what youth have done. We have over 50 awards for what we do. We have 4 of the largest awards that probably the state can offer. It's the Kids Safe Collaborators, and we have 4 of them. And also our youth have earned these awards and scholarships and all kind of cool stuff. And so I'm very happy that you came here to talk about some other things. That same type of stuff that we do here, we do it here. We've been doing it since actually like 2001. And we, like I said, we're 50 awards, so we have some great measurements. And community partners, we couldn't do without our other nonprofit partners, community, schools, business, legislators. We work closely with our central level people and governor and all these people, and who recognize what we do. And what I just always said to all, because I'm part of the coalitions to our health department. We are not a coalition, but they asked me to be a part of the coalition in like 2000 because they knew I work with youth, I can bring youth to the thing, to the room. Is that all I say to all our partners is, all you have to do is get your youth advisory board first, and let's just sit them down and ask them, what's your mission, goals, and objectives, and what do you need to do to how can we help you meet your goals, dreams, and aspirations in life? What can we do? Because everybody who we know, all our partners and business people and adults, and we have so many incredible things who we are, we can help them. We already doing them. You ain't got to worry about, well, I got to do this, I got to go to graduate, and I got to earn money, and I get a loan, all that. No. We already know these people. You can do these things right now, and they'd be more than happy to help you. So thank you.
Holly, do you invite us if we can come to see your activity? Okay. Interesting. Thank you very much. Interesting.
Hi, I wonder if you could address how you've thought about the monoculture that I think is going on in Finland. I'm not really sure. I apologize that I'm not as aware of your culture. But I look at the United States and I think about trying to imagine, I even look at Burlington and try to imagine with the many cultures here, because we are a refugee resettlement city, what it's been like to do the dance with parents who have very different ideas about what youth work and youth responsibility is. So I'd love to see a national priority on youth, but I can't even really imagine a citywide priority on youth that would address the diversity that we're trying to dance among. And I wonder how you address that or think about that in your work.
Yes, thank you. You are right. Finland has been for a long time quite monocultural country, but it changed maybe 15 years ago. We started to have refugees from Somalia, Africa, and then other countries. And 3 years ago, when Europe had a big, due to the war, we had a big immigration wave. From South Africa, Iran, Iraq, and so on, and even Finland took 50,000 refugees and all that. So it's been changing quickly. So I think today we have something like 20% of people on immigrant background, mostly in the big cities, and we are not having any kind of a priority policies on that, because we think we try to integrate them, for example, in youth work through the ordinary activities. And the school is doing very good job in integrating the immigrants, trying to teach them the horribly difficult Finnish language, it's apparently it's doing quite well. For example, this happiness survey which you saw, the UN experts who did this happiness survey also compared the happiness between the kind of the Finnish people, the kind of those who have lived there already, and then the happiness of people immigrating to Finland or any other country. And Finland was the only country where the immigrant background people were equally happy than the Finnish people. So it seems that the integration job is somehow working the way it is. I think very much thanks to the efficient work of the education system, but the rest of us, we are trying to do the same.
We have time for one more question.
Hi, I'm Kate Larson, and thank you very much for an incredible presentation. So my question is about youth, the staff that you hire, and I'm really interested in how you find talent and how you create an environment where the people who are working with the youth in the youth centers are innovative and have experience in the world and are really bringing a lot of life to how they're doing their job, and get paid enough money to do that, I guess, too.
Okay, starting from the money, because this is a municipal activity and it's free, it's covered through municipal taxes. We pay about 20% from our salary taxes to the municipalities. So that's 2 times more that you pay any kind of taxes. So Finnish people pay a lot of taxes. And the biggest taxes go to the municipality because the municipalities are responsible for providing the services. So that's where the money comes. We have in Finland a very good youth worker education system. We have a kind of a basic youth worker education which takes 3 years. Then we have a kind of a bachelor's level applied university degree called social pedagogues, actually, which can work both in, which are intended to work both in municipal context and in the organizations. And then we have one course where we can have a master's degree in youth work. So we have about, I think most of our youth workers, 90%, 95% have a specific youth worker training of some level. And of course there is already a kind of a selection. The educational institutions select students, and then of course when they apply, for instance, City of Helsinki, it's a normal recruitment process where those who hire have a decent interview with the people and see if they are up to the work they are hired to. And so far we have had a good supply of these people. Now about the question of innovativeness is a good question. How do we keep the youth workers not constantly repeat the old basic youth work methods, but also are innovative and open to kind of a new working methods, open to new arenas of youth work, like for instance, work through the internet or its different media and all that stuff, or use cultural youth work as one means. So that, I think, is dependent on two things. One thing is that in many youth services, the youth workers have a kind of a combination job, so that they are working part of their time in the youth centers. Another part, they could be organizing big youth events. A third part, they could be running courses on graffiti or working in the schools as a youth worker. So they have kind of a combination professions with and these different combinations, they can be changed all the time based on the discussions with one's boss. So these kind of things keep the youth workers kind of on the move, and on the other hand, their kind of a job is very kind of a changing, so it perhaps is more motivating than doing all the time the same work. So that's one thing. And my experience, having been a manager of 400 youth workers, I'm absolutely convinced that one key factor of keeping youth workers an agile and innovative approach is how they are managed. That's important. The manager can promote in many ways: education, giving special more salary or special prices or whatever, those people who have an innovative attitude at their work. So it's very much a question of management too. Okay, well.
Before we let Lasse go, I wanted to share and thank Lasse for so many of the ideas that the coalition has picked up on, starting with the youth rights document that he showed as part of his presentation. That comes from Finland, and the idea of the rights of the child and elevating youth rights. The idea of the coalition itself, a cross-sector approach to looking at youth, comes from Finland, and the 9 to 26 coalition is based on that. The idea of a youth council that is not created to represent all youth in Vermont, but is really charged with how do you elevate youth voice across the state. So that is their charge, not to try to represent the entire state, but how do we get other youth weighing in. The participatory budgeting process that our youth have been doing. So in the Helsinki Youth Council, the Youth Council is responsible for a budget of 200,000 euro. And they run a process where youth from throughout Helsinki get to propose ideas for how that money should be spent to better the lives for youth. And then youth throughout Helsinki all go online and they have a voter ID and they vote and they choose which ideas are going to be funded. So we stole that idea as well. Our youth council, with funding from the Department of Health here in Vermont, as well as the Mott Foundation, is given $25,000. And they met throughout the fall. They designed a competition. It was open. It closed last Sunday. We thought, I don't know if we're going to get any. They were all worried about it. They ended up getting 44 proposals from all across Vermont, almost every county. The ideas were submitted from young people ages 10 to 21. A big chunk of 14-year-olds in there submitting ideas. The requests total over $100,000. And the ideas are absolutely amazing. As you read through them, they make you cry. It's about setting up a social justice library for children. It's about having a safe space in Milton to get together as teenagers and talk about difficult issues like racism. It is about creating a program to teach other teenagers how to repair their cars so that they can have transportation to get places. It's about a program that has money for foster parents to take their foster children on trips to places they've never seen, like the ocean. It's about community gardens. It's about community dance programs and movement. It is just one amazing idea after another. And the youth met last week in the State House actually to try to figure out now what do they do with all these ideas. ideas. They are setting up a voting process, so youth from across Vermont will vote on the ideas, and the Youth Council is working very hard to figure out how do we support all youth who submitted ideas and proposals, not just some of the youth. So how do we help them carry their ideas forward? And with the coalition, we'll be working very hard on how do we share this story of what's coming from our young people. And it's not the climate change protests, but it's related to it. It's the great ideas of looking around their communities saying this is what needs to happen. And it really was putting out an ask and just being, all these ideas flowing in from our young people. So we really appreciate all the inspiration from your work and what you've done in Helsinki with the youth and throughout Finland and Europe, and what we are able to borrow and steal and copy and use here. And I think you owe us. That whole slide on why you even started doing youth work was because of us. So I think that it's totally fair for us to steal those ideas back 70 years later or whatever it is. But thank you for that. Lasse is going to be here the rest of the week. We've got him really busy, visiting different places throughout the state, testifying in the State House, meeting with the coalition. And I hope that we all will leave tonight with this information and that challenge to think anew, think differently about the third space, think differently about youth, how we listen to them, how we see them, how we recognize them in the community as they move through those spaces. And I hope we'll also leave not content with this idea that we are going to reach some youth or certain youth, but really embracing this idea that we need to serve and support and reach all our youth every day in every community. So thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for being part of the discussion. I hope you'll stay involved and join the coalition or get on our mailing list, and have a wonderful evening. Thank you.